Welcome to another episode of Michigan Tech's Husky Hour. In this episode of Husky Hour, Arundel joins to talk about navigating friendships, remaining social, and finding ways to spend time with those you care about during the COVID-19 pandemic. Enjoy!
Hi everybody, I'm Dana Browning and I'm from the Center for Student Mental Health and Wellbeing, and we're here for another Husky Hour talking about navigating friendships and just kind of dealing with that in the time of COVID.
Hi everybody, I'm one of the student interns this semester at the Center for Student Mental Health and Wellbeing.
Sure, my name is Arundel. I am a mental health counselor here at Michigan Tech, and so I meet with students one-on-one and I do workshops and groups and things like that as well.
So my first question, going right into the thick of it, and what are some ways that students can find friends and create those friendships right now?
I mean, I feel like I need to be honest right now. It's hard. There's kind of this stigma that I've talked about with a few people. With COVID now, we have a tendency to see other people as sick. Even if they're not sick, we just are concerned about other people might have it. And if people might have it, then we maybe don't want to interact with them. I think though that, especially from talking with housing and things like that, there are things still happening on campus. And I think as much as possible, when you, as safe as you can feel, go and try to get involved with some of those events and things that are happening on campus. The crazy thing though is that there have been some odd and interesting ways that have surprised me that people are also connecting. There are some apps and things out there that people are connecting through. The one that threw me the most is I had a student that I was meeting with, and really her main problem was she's feeling very lonely. She was a first year. She got involved with, Tinder. She looked up Tinder, and Tinder actually has a side to Tinder that's very focused on friendship making, which I didn't even know that was a thing. I had no idea. Obviously, I'm not really on Tinder, but there's a side of it that's friendship, and she made some awesome friends through Tinder. Now, obviously, you have to be safe and you have to be smart and careful, but she made some good friends, and she's been hanging out with them, and she doesn't feel like she even needs to meet with me anymore because she's made some good friends. So you got to think a little outside of the box, I think, right now, and go and try to really get yourself out there to meet with people in safe ways. And you got to decide what the level of safety is for you too. Everybody's a little different.
So is that like IRL friends? Like she met him on Tinder and then they're actually here. That's not like a friend in some faraway place. Okay.
Yeah, and she said that the Tinder, that there are a lot of students here that use the Tinder app actually for friendship. I didn't even know that. I had no clue. Hannah, I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not, but yeah. Now, of course, when you're using an app like Tinder that sometimes is meant for hooking up, you still have to be safe. You have to be smart with it. But she said all the people that she connected with through it are actually students here. You know what I mean? Which makes it a little bit less scary too. You know what I mean? When she told me that, and here's the thing, anytime anyone tells me that they're, I'll say like, oh, well, how'd you meet? The response is always this, Tinder. Like, it's like this embarrassment, but I think Tinder has evolved, It's not just a place for people to hook up. It's become a place where people can hang out and get to know each other. And so that's why I wanted to mention it.
Do you have any thoughts on kids meeting through Zoom or like other social media platforms?
There are communities through tech that are online. I think Reddit's kind of the biggest one right now, that there's a big community through Reddit online. There's also communities through, I think from what I've heard is pretty much every class now has, I get all the technology ones, I get confused as to which one's which, but it's the
Discord.
Discord, thank you. Yeah, so there's pretty much a Discord for most classes now. And I mean, really what it takes for friendship, and I've talked about this before, is some sort of common denominator, right? And if you're in a class with somebody and you're struggling through something, that's a great starting point, The students that succeed academically here best are ones that are inside of groups of people that are doing homework together and working together on stuff. And so still finding ways to do that, but maybe doing it through Zoom, doing it through using Discord and things like that. Those are still ways to build friendships. Any sort of connections, any sort of vulnerability that you can create with each other and share what's going on with each other will help you get closer. Literally any reason can be a reason to connect with somebody and make a connection with somebody. Now, with safety side of things, I don't know if I'm the best one to talk about those things, but just I think The one thing I can say about it is comfortability. Recognize what's happening inside of yourself. If you're noticing yourself getting uncomfortable with the situation, then get yourself out of the situation. It's better to be honest and upfront with people when you're trying to form friendships and relationships. That's what's going to create a better, stronger bond anyways. So I think it's worthwhile to just be in touch with how you're feeling and what's going on.
I noticed that on our social media post, it said, as you get older, it's harder to make friends. And I think that is true because, we're all homework or class or work or some sort of other errand that we need to get done. Do you have any advice on, making time to also be social and create those friendships with people?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking with another student about this. When you were kids, you would just dive in. You would just dive in, get to know someone, and if they didn't work out, you just would go meh and walk away. And I have a 5-year-old. I watch this a lot with her. There's no stopping her jumping in and getting to know somebody. I think what happens as we get older is we get more self-conscious and more self-aware of rejection and things like that can happen. The problem is that we get so far to one side of it that we are so worried about the rejection that we don't even want to form relationships with people. And that's what happens, I think, as we start to get that fear starts to control our direction that we want to go and the relationships that we want to make. And so what I want to tell people sometimes is just tap into that little child side of you. I mean, one of the cool things about a little kid, if you ever watch them, is they can make friends with anybody very easily. And what they do is they find the common connection. They find the thing that they both like, instead of focusing on the things that they disagree about. The things I guess that I would take as advice from my child from watching her is get yourself out there. You have to actually try to form relationships with people. You got to put the effort in. And especially as someone now that I'm in my 40s, it doesn't get easier. I still have to force myself to get out there and spend time, because there's times when I get done with work and I don't want to do anything. I just want to relax and, chill out or whatever. And I want to spend time with my family and my kids. But I know that it is good for me and I'm better for my family when I have time with friends too. And so you've got to just plan that time and be intentional about taking that time and get yourself out there. The other thing is that don't worry as much about the rejection side of things. A friendship is a two-way street. If you're going to make a friend with somebody, those really tight bonded friendships come from a lot of trial and error. Trying to connect with people, trying to get to know people, and then finding out this friendship's at a 5, and then you have a friendship that's like a 7. Then you find that one person that's like a 10 type of person in your life. Don't judge too quickly in your friendships too. We have a tendency to look at someone and immediately assume they're that kind of person, and I won't be able to be friends with them. But it's so interesting when it's happening. And I remember times in my life that a kid who was like a bully to me when I was younger ended up becoming a really good friend later on in life. And it's because when you're a kid, you just keep trying. You don't care. You know what I mean? You put that effort in and you get to know. For some reason, we have a tendency to classify people very quickly and then throw them away. And sometimes you just got to keep plugging away, try to keep working on people, get to know people.
Yeah, I think that's just such a good point. The common denominator thing. I actually yesterday reached out to somebody that I went to college with that I probably haven't talked to probably in 5 years since before I had a kid, and she's totally off social media now. And so I was like, man, what happened to her? And I was like, hey, I heard this song on the radio. It reminded me of you, and I was like, well, she might not even have the same phone number anymore. It's been a while. And I was like, in parentheses, this is Dana. And she was like, I know who this is. Oh my gosh, you just made my day. I'm so excited to hear from you. And, then we ended up texting back and forth for 2 hours. And that was my road back into a conversation with her, finding that, a song that we always used to play, that kind of thing. It can be something little too, which is nice.
We kind of assume because of when we were younger, relationships were easy and they didn't take much effort. The reality of the situation is that it does take time. You have to put the effort in, You took a moment, something little simple. You heard a song, you thought of the person, and then you took the time to write them or call them or whatever. You know what I mean? And we need it. That's how relationships stay connected. That's how they stay together is time. You put effort into them. One of the things about school that's so nice is that you have that common connection. You can turn to the person next to you if you're in a class and go, dude, that test, right? Like, you know what I mean? And the other person's like, yeah, you know what I mean? And then boom, you've made a connection. You know, you both kind of are on that same page at least, you know. And there are certain classes where you can say that about every test. But you know what I mean? There's this, you know, you have a common denominator, a connection that can happen that very, very easily.
And I think that's the nice thing about like the Discord channels for classes and stuff, like you can connect, but you know, next time you're in a class and people have their videos on or have like a screensaver picture or something, see if you can find somebody that has something in common with you or that you like, you know, in their background, a t-shirt they're wearing, something they said.
What advice would you give for keeping up those friendships? I feel like sometimes if you're not like immediately seeing those people, or if they're not like in your direct class circle or something, you kind of lose touch, and you don't mean to, but you do. But what are ways that maybe you could avoid that almost, or just keep those connections a little bit better and brighter?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, like every friendship has stages of, and sometimes they have lifetimes too. So sometimes they end. I mean, it can happen sometimes. I don't have any of my friends from high school really that I hang out much with or connect with much. I mean, we're Facebook friends, but you know, what's that? You know, like, and it's nice to look into their lives a little bit every once in a while, but it's not really like a friendship, I would say. Really, it's what you pay into it is what you get out of it in any sort of friendship. So if you put time into it, you typically get something out of it. There are times in our lives and seasons in our lives where we're busier than other times. And we don't have the time to put into a friendship or a relationship as much as we'd like to. And so I always want to encourage people that like being honest and upfront as much as possible. Just even a simple like, man, I wish I could hang out with you right now. This semester's kicking my butt or whatever, can be sometimes enough to continue that relationship, just letting them know that you're still there and you care about them. And I wish I could be spending time with you, but I can't. You know, I've had really good relationships and really good friendships in my life when I've had really tough times that people will do stuff for you too and just be there for it. Be that good friend. You know, you got a friend that's like been studying all day and hasn't had a chance to even eat or anything. Gosh, go bring them some food, cook them something, bring it over to them, go pick something up at McDonald's or whatever and bring it to them. Do something that you know will make them feel special and loved. And then when you show up, have no expectations. Just say, hey, I brought you stuff. I know you need to go back to work, but I knew you needed to eat. Here's some food. We'll see you later. I love you. And then leave. You know what I mean? Like whatever you need to do to give them and love them. I think that's the biggest thing too. Great friendships are not focused on your needs. They're focused on the other person's needs as well. You kind of try to find what's going to be the balance. And I think we're very good sometimes at focusing on one or the other, either fully on the other person or fully on what we need. And it's a balance, right? We got to be in this place of recognizing like, well, how am I feeling about how things are going? But what are they needing and how can I help them?
And especially now, because we're so overwhelmed with like everything we have to do and Zoom and all that, like, hey, do you want to go do this at this time? Like being really specific and, you know, saying, if that doesn't work for you, we could go Saturday morning instead. But, you know, giving people some options and of fun things to do together, I think is a really important step as well.
Yeah, and along that too, I just want to say like a first rejection does not mean they're rejecting you. It may just mean that they're busy or the time doesn't work. So if you say, hey, you want to go to eat, you know, lunch today, and they say, oh, I just can't. That is an opportunity to say, well, when can you? Because I really want to spend time with you and I care about you. Or what else can we do instead? You know what I mean? But we have a tendency to instead go, oh, I was rejected. We can't do lunch today. Well, don't look at it that way. Instead, look at it as like, well, what's the next opportunity? What can we do together? It doesn't matter if we go to lunch today. That's not really what's important. What's important is you get to spend time with the person at some point.
Do you have any advice on like, yeah, you have those friendships, but creating those deeper connections, you know, you have lots of friends, but how do you create those best friends? You know, how do you open yourself up to allow for a best friend? I feel like sometimes people are very guarded, you know, if they've lost a friend in the past or whatever the case, and they don't know how to make that new connection.
The simple phrase is vulnerability creates intimacy. And those are two words that are really uncomfortable for us in our society nowadays, but it's really the truth. The more we share and what I mean by vulnerability is just sharing part of yourself. with somebody else. And there's a level of depth for each person of how vulnerable they want to be with somebody else. But I'm telling you, the deeper vulnerability that you can go with somebody, the closer your friendship will be. I talk about my friend Andy all the time. He's my best friend. Andy knows all my crap. Like, he knows every awful thing about me, and he loves me anyways. That is a level of vulnerability that's like that deepest that you'll ever get with somebody. And I just think that like that's the type of friendship I think you're talking about, Hannah, like that really super deep friendship. Well, that takes like them knowing things about you that are hard for you to share with somebody else, things you've never told somebody else about, but that they accept you and love you anyway. Now, that doesn't mean you go and talk to a friend about that immediately when you first meet them. Then you're just weird. This is a building thing, right? We build blocks of relationship and friendship with somebody. There's a little vulnerability, which creates a little more vulnerability, which creates a little more vulnerability. And there's always give and take too. If you notice you're the only one being vulnerable with somebody, then that may be where the level they feel comfortable is. But over time, you still can build that, you know? So it's going to take like opening up and sharing part of yourself with somebody else on a deeper level to form that intimacy and connection with them so that you can feel that deeper relationship and friendship. I think it's funny. I think that we have this tendency to assume like I need to find the right person. And really it's not as much about the right person as much as it is about people who are willing and can accept you for you. That's hard right now in our society to be honest about how you really feel about things, because we're worried about people coming back at us for what we believe and what we think. And so we feel like everybody's got to agree with us. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. Some of my best friends are people that I disagree with about things, but we accept each other as they are. You know what I'm saying? I can accept your reasoning and understanding of why you believe that, I guess is what I'm saying.
In terms of like people who live by themselves, and you were saying how it's helpful to have Zoom on in the background, do you have any other like tips for them for still getting those connections?
Yeah, I mean, intentionality is going to be huge. You have to be intentional about getting yourself out in some way, shape, or form. And that may be just even going, if you don't have friends to hang out with, go and spend times in places where there are other people. And in safe ways, of course. I'm not saying, that you need to just go hang out with people, all the time. But I'm saying, like, go for walks where there's other people walking so you can just see other human beings. Like, I hear from students sometimes that they spend a whole week inside of their room and never leave, and they live by themselves. And I'm like, this is not good for you. You know what I mean? And it's not. I mean, you can tell when you meet with these students that they're kind of going out of their minds. It's not a good thing. We need to see other human beings, I guess is what I'm just saying, So even just going to Walmart and going shopping, wear a mask, go around, go to shopping, go to local food place or whatever. Go walking downtown where other people are walking, just being able to see other people. And then I would say, making sure you set aside time. I know we're busy, lots of homework, lots of work to be doing, lots of projects to be doing. Set aside time to hang out with people. It will recharge your batteries to the point that when you actually do work, it'll be more effective work. If you're running at 50% working, but you could hang out with people for an hour and get up to 100 or 80% or 100%, it ends up working out, right? I think the math works out on that, but yeah, there you go. You know what I mean? It's more worthwhile, I think, to take those breaks and get the connections with other people to recharge your batteries.
Husky Hour is brought to you by the Center for Student Mental Health and Well-Being. Visit mtu.edu/well-being for more information about programs, events, and workshops. Thanks for listening.